May the road rise up to meet you, and the wind be on your back. May the sun shine warm.
Hello and welcome back. I trust you found and appreciated some covered bridges and apple orchards this week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the last lesson for week 9. Today we're at week 10 of the series, and that will cover days 57 to 63. Or if you have the edition of the Road Rising that follows the calendar, then you'd be looking at February 26th to March 3rd. If the story of the pilgrim here were in a movie, the music at this point would go minor, a harbinger of things to come. He's left all signs of civilization and is now going through a real wilderness, leaving him somewhat troubled, wishing sometimes that he could go back. And now, on March 1st, friend comes to what looks like the end of the trail, overlooking a huge valley below with a sheer cliff keeping him away from it. Searching for a way down, he's horrified to discover a series of small holes carved into the limestone below him. The only way forward, it seems, is to climb down, using the handholds and footholds. As I mentioned at the beginning of this series, The Road Rising is not an autobiography. I'm not relating my own personal experience here. However, I will confess that a lot of what the pilgrim goes through in this story has at its concept some of my own memories. This particular experience takes me back to the early 1970s when my wife, Marsha, and I lived on the plains of eastern Colorado while I taught at a very small school located 50 miles from the nearest town. There was a lot of beauty to be discovered out there, and one of the big attractions were the Pawnee Buttes, a series of flat-topped mountains like you see in the old Western cowboy movies. One of the buttes had been used by the Pawnee Indians many years ago as a high point from which to look for buffalo. They had carved a set of holes going up the sheer rock face and used those to climb up and down. Going up was exciting, but not that difficult. But as Marsha and I discovered painfully, the way back down was an experiment in terror. The pilgrim's words in his March 3rd, day 63 journal entry could have come from my own lips back there in the Pawnee Buttes. Let me read them for you. Every fiber of my being urged me to stay in my sleeping bag this morning. I knew what waited, and I most assuredly did not want to face it. When I went to sleep last night, I was blessed with a sense of peace. Not that the deed was done, but that I had at last resolved myself to do it. Obedience dictated that I continue on the trail, even if it led off a sheer precipice. I'd spent most of the day yesterday trying desperately to find any alternative, but there was none. I packed slowly, deciding to wait until I reached the canyon floor to have breakfast, as if the extra weight in my stomach would offset the strength I might have gained from eating. Everything cinched up tightly. I lifted my backpack, then had an idea. Walking carefully to the edge of the cliff, I hesitated a moment, then tossed the pack down. It seemed to fall for an eternity before disappearing from sight. I never heard it hit the ground. Now I was committed. Everything I owned was in that pack. I could not easily move forward or backward without it. And now that it was down below, my direction of travel was set. I finally took a deep breath, got on my hands and knees, and eased backwards over the edge. It was there that I made a despairing discovery. Knees don't bend forward. My right leg was extended straight, but until I lowered myself down farther off the cliff, there was no way I could get my foot into the first hole. Sweat was dripping off my forehead, and my hands were trembling. My body was being held in place by 3 points, right and left hands and left foot. The other foot had to go. Using my elbows for added grip, I let my left foot slip over the edge. Now there was nothing keeping me from death except my trembling forearms and 10 fingers done inextricably into the hard-packed soil of the trail. My strength was failing. If I didn't keep moving, I'd lose my grip. With a desperate prayer escaping my lips, I let my body slip farther down. My right foot touched rock, but where was the foothold? Gingerly, I moved my foot up, then down, then right and left. Nothing but sheer cliff face. Battling every shred of self-preservation, I lowered myself more, until I thought I could no longer hold on. I kicked with my foot, once, twice, and then suddenly, instead of my toe striking the surface, I felt a shooting pain as my shin collided with rock. My foot was inside the first hole. I eased weight onto it and was rewarded with a sense of relief that spread from my shaking fingers all the way to my toes. The rest of the way down was terrifying, but not impossible. Eventually, I came to a point about halfway down where I realized that it was going to be easier to keep going down than back up. And then a few steps later, I ventured a quick look down and saw the bottom about 30 feet farther. The rest of the way was almost exhilarating. I reached the bottom totally depleted, but laughing with a mixture of relief and joy. Why had this been such a challenge? One step, I realized. After that first effort, the rest came progressively easier. I wonder if hearing this man's story has brought any memories of your own. When was the last time you were really scared? How did you get through it? Remember that God does not promise us a life free of fear or even pain, but He does promise that He will go with us every step of the way. And that makes all the difference. See you next time. Y'all come back now here. Friend defends himself with a crude spear and succeeds in injuring the lion, but only enough to cause him to withdraw for a while.